everybody. It's Georgia Rose from Zencuda. Must be Monday night, 7 o'clock, because I am at Strong Island Studio in Massapequa, New York. So welcome to the Soul Space Podcast. This is where we meet every Monday night, and we talk about all things spiritual and astrology. Sometimes I have guests on. And basically, we pull tarot cards, and we talk about life and how to grow our soul. So welcome to the Soul Space. I've been doing this show. I actually, over the weekend, I was looking at my YouTube channel because I'm going to, revise, and a lot of retrogrades going on, so you want to revise and redo. And I'm kind of taking some things from old videos and making things a little bit more relevant and things like that. And I realized I've been doing this podcast for 4 years. I started out at a different studio. This is my home now at Strong Island. I love it here, and I love the staff here, Carmine and Bobby, and we have a new intern, Francesca, or Jacqueline. Her name is Jacqueline. I don't know who Francesca is, but she's coming in. Okay, so Jacqueline and Carmine and Bobby help me every week, and they're wonderful, and this is a great place if you have to do any kind of studio stuff or podcast. So tonight we're going to talk about some of the retrogrades that have been going on. Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde, very, very powerful, especially with their timing and the end of the year. We've got some things that are coming up just for this week as well. Retrograde is going to be around here a little longer. But if you would share the show, if you're at home and you have friends or family that you think might be interested in some of the topics that we discuss, I would love it if you would share the show. If you missed the live feed or you come in late, we always bank the show on YouTube, both at Strong Island Television and also my own personal channel of Zencuda. And also, you can always go to zencuda.com. You'll see every Soul Space show banked on there. And if you want to book any kind of a reading or healing session with me, tarot, astrology reading, you can do that at zencuda.com. You can do it directly. It'll actually schedule your appointment for you. It alerts me, and then I actually record the appointments that we do through Zoom or FaceTime, and you have it forever. So reach out and contact me. So I am just going to pop over here to my transits of the day, of the week. So today is December 9th, I think it is, right? I've been working really hard at my earthbound job, so sometimes the days get a little fluky for me. But we have some things happening. A couple of days ago, Neptune actually stationed direct, which means Neptune is no longer retrograde. We'll talk about that a little bit during the retrograde discussion tonight. We've also got Venus and the North Node making a transit. When Venus and the North Node are talking to each other, Venus is our wants and our desires. It's the things that are really meaningful and matter in our life. And the North Node is where we find our true, authentic self. The reason why our soul came into this life is activated through the North Node. We've also still got Mercury retrograde today. That's also having a conversation with Venus. So if you've been feeling a lot of introspection or deep thought about your wants, your desires, how to make your life a little more meaningful, or what is meaningful to me, what is valuable to me, then that's why, because Venus has really been in play. We've also got coming in this week on the 12th, we've got Venus opposite Mars, and Mars is retrograde in Leo. And we've got Mercury retrograde talking also to Venus, as I just said. And Mercury is the way that our minds work, our communication, our thought process, our voice, our hearing. So when it's talking to Venus, it's going to be about what's really meaningful. What do I really want to discern information-wise that's meaningful to me? What am I hearing that I really only need this information that's valuable, not all of it? How do I discern that in my life? So really an interesting week coming up. What you're going to find this week is, and up until the end of this year and into January a little bit, is we're going to be a little bit quieter. It's going to be a more quiet holiday, even though we do have some planets in Sagittarius, mostly because of the retrogrades. And also it's just a culmination of a lot of energy that we have had this year. And also we've had a lot of culmination of, or should I say, stockpiling, building up energy from Pluto going into Aquarius. So, that's going to feel like we're being put in a different place. Our energy, our perspective has changed. And so we kind of need to be able to recalibrate. We need to be able to catch up. it's almost like we need time to heal all those things that happened when Pluto was in Capricorn the last 15 years. So I'm trying to bring up my own chart here for the chart of the day to show you where some planets are and stuff, so we can talk about that tonight. I know you all want to hear about these retrogrades, so here we go. Okay. Chart of the moment. Expand this out a little bit. Yeah, so we still got Mars retrograde at 6 degrees, hovering around 6 degrees of Leo. We've got, which will be going into Capricorn, going into Cancer in a few days. We've also got the Sun and Mercury still in Sagittarius. However, that Sun this month will obviously go to Capricorn right at the winter solstice around the 20th, 21st. We've got Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And we've got some other planets there. Venus right now is at 3 degrees there, and they're talking to each other. They're close, Venus and Pluto. So it's our wants and our desires and all the things that have meaning, deep meaning to us. It's going on a new path. It's finding that the things that used to be important to us maybe are switching, shifting. We're finding a little bit different resources coming up from within ourselves. So let's talk about the retrogrades. So we've got Mars retrograde in Leo going back to Cancer. And when it does that, one thing that you have to realize is Mars in Leo is an energy that is fire, okay? Mars is a planet that is that rules Aries, which is a fire sign, and Leo is a fire sign. Leo is also our solar light. It's ruled by the sun. So a fire sign is going to be much more aggressive with a planet like Mars in it than it would be normally. Mars is a warrior. It wants us to take action. Wherever Mars in your chart, the house and the sign of Mars, really signifies for an astrologer when they read your chart the way you take action in your life and what kind of activities and action are really deeply resonating with you. Mars in Leo for all of us, depending on what house it's in, is going to bring in a lot of activity that's going to have to do with where you really want to spend your time and where you want to take up space. You know, Leo is like the actor on the stage. It's the presenter. And when we are in Leo energy, sometimes it can be childlike. It wants to be an attractor. It wants to have fun. It also wants to dominate. That's the downside of Leo energy. So wherever that is in your chart, when Mars is retrograde in Leo, it's going to bring about an area of your life that you want to act on. You're going to want to take more activity on. But when it's retrograde, it's more of a slow burn, not the fire. So you're probably thinking a lot about wherever that house is for you, for Mars and Leo. You're probably thinking a lot about, well, what do I really want to do? What's itching at me? What am I feeling compelled to take care of or move forward with? But you're not really ready to do it yet. But pay attention to that intuition, because Mars and Leo is actually setting you up for when Mars goes direct, which is being the early part of 2025, to take that action. It's like a planning phase, but it's also a phase where your mind and also your body, your whole embodiment of this energy is about something deeply meaningful that is the reason why you exist, basically. Ruled by the sun, that's your solar light. It's the source of why you're here. So this is like a really deep, important energy. And then we have that Mercury retrograde also in a fire sign in Sagittarius. So Mercury there is letting us know in Sagittarius what the truth is. So if you take the Mars, Leo, fire, movement, action, aggression, assertion, ambition, and then the Mercury in Sagittarius, truth, justice, honesty, what is truth to me? What are my belief systems? And you put those together, it means that we're all seriously thinking about what are our belief systems? Where do we want to take action in our life to bring those belief systems more forward to be our authentic self? And it's going to be a really interesting time, because when these retrogrades are over, especially that Mars retrograde, which is extremely long, Mars retrograde is not usually this long, it'll go on into 2025. It's a buildup of that authentic energy and the fire within us to bring it forward in a very truthful, authentic, and honest way. So what is that for you? Well, it's different for each one of us depending on where our chart is. So that's the actual archetype of the retrogrades, right? Mars in Leo, Mercury in Sagittarius. But now Mars is going to start, because it's going backwards a little bit or moving slower, it's going to, as the planets move forward, it's going to go into Cancer, the sign before Leo. And when it does that, that's going to change the energy because we go from fire to water. So when that Mars goes into Cancer, where it will be then until the beginning of the year, that's going to change the energy and actually bring us to a place of more deep contemplation about what that Mars is signifying for us. And so in Cancer, it's going to be more like our identity. How do we identify with the action that Mars and Mercury want us to take to actually embody our truth and the justice that will bring us our own authenticity, the balance and the honesty that's brought forward? What about our belief systems are deeply entwined and attached to our identity, our true authentic identity? And that's the work we're going to be doing the next couple of months. And it sounds interesting and it sounds deep, but it's also amazingly evolving for all of us. And that's really what headed to 2025, and once we're in 2025, is all about evolving our soul, accelerating that evolvement, because we're in a time when the world is moving in places it's never been before. The light codes, the light, everything that we thrive on spiritually is much more accelerated. So we're going to find ourselves evolving more and more. So now I want to talk just about the retrograde and what a retrograde is, not even specifically pertaining to the retrogrades going on in the sky. Because the last time that Mars was retrograde in Leo, it was 2009 to 2010. And that's why for many of us, that time period has been coming back over again, because it's a timeline of the energy. Retrogrades are actually about time. You know, people always give retrogrades a bad name, and they're like, well, you know, when Mercury's retrograde, don't sign anything or buy a car or, you know, make your travel arrangements. That's really not what a retrograde is about. A retrograde is about time, because a retrograde, or the retrograde motion, is a pattern in reality that moves forward and back and forward again. It's not exactly like, you know, moving backwards. It's more like a zigzag, like a Z, okay? It moves forward and then back and then forward again, right? It's a time in reality. It's the reality of time. That's why a lot of times we use the chart to show us what a retrograde is going to bring us back to or repeat, because we can do that because the chart is dynamic and always moving. And we can pinpoint where the planet was the last time it was in that sign in space. And right now, that's 2009, 2010 for this Mars retrograde. So retrogrades, generally speaking, are an astrological pattern that are really about time. And it's immersing us in that time. It makes us think back. How many times when Venus is retrograde, old loves come back, right? Old relationships repeat, because it's about time, not just about the planet and the archetype and the energy that planet brings forth. It's also a time when that planet is closest to the Earth. That's why the force field and the timeline is so potent, because it's about that repetition of a time frame. And what it does is it doesn't just bring us back to time or back in time. It's not like a time machine. But what it does is it brings us back to the memory field of that time. That's how time works. It brings us back, it propels us back into the memory field. But as it does that and gives us reflection, revision, we rethink things, right? Everything, you always hear astrologers say, anything that begins with re for retrograde. While it does that, it doesn't do that because, oh, the love's coming back because this was the love of my life. No, remember, it's not about the situation. It's about time, going back into a memory field. And why do retrogrades do that? Retrogrades do that because it brings us different perspective to an old situation. And that's the reason that retrogrades were made and created by source energy, in order to bring us to the memory, the time, the field force. 2009 and 2010 was an extremely challenging time for me. And some of those things have been coming back up. But what's the difference? The difference is I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the same person I was in 2009 and 2010. So now when the situation or the energy repeats, I have a completely different perspective of it. And one of the ways I described this recently on one of my Zooms that I had with a group that I'm in, I said, I haven't moved my home. I still live in the same home. And I still have the same backyard. And the trees and the landscape is all in the same place. But now it feels like I'm looking out a different window. I'm looking at the backyard from a completely different place. But I'm still in the same home. I'm still in the same place. But I'm looking at a different window. Or think of yourself on the top of a mountain. And you go to the top of the mountain and you see this beautiful view. And you're looking out at the mountain. But if you turn this way and look at the view, it's a completely different perception. Completely different perspective. But you're still at the top of the mountain looking out at the same landscape. That's a retrograde. It brings you back to the mountain. It brings you back to the backyard. It brings you back in time to the memory field. But time has elapsed now. You have elapsed. You have evolved. So you're looking at it from a completely different perspective. And it's there to show you that in the re-experiencing of the pattern, you now know what you've outgrown and can see even what more once the retrograde is over. Because now you've experienced the same time frame, the same memory field, the same force field with a different essence. And so now you have wisdom. So that's why when the retrograde ends and goes direct again, we suddenly have a fresh perspective and we're like, oh, that's what that was about. That's what that was. And depending on the planet, it can be a year, 2 years. In this case, it's 15 years, right? And so we have a very different perspective of the energy. We don't actually go back to the moment. We go back to a memory of that moment with different eyes, with different wisdom, with different belief systems, with different essence. And that's the true evolution of the soul. So that's why retrogrades are created. And that's the true reason for retrogrades. And it can be like a Mercury retrograde, which is very common. It happens quite a lot, 4 or 5 times a year. The awareness is going to be more subtle. The awareness is going to be maybe a little bit more superficial. Whereas with a Pluto retrograde or a Mars retrograde, especially this one because there's a lot of other transits happening during this retrograde, with this, it's going to be a more deeply felt, meaningful type of retrograde. Because why? Because Mars is the way we take action in our life. So now when a situation re-arises, that was 2009, 2010, we took action on it in some way there. Someone, Christine, I know, had commented that she got married then, and then her divorce is going to be final now. Well, you met that person and you took action, and there was a certain you that was aligned and entangled with that person. And then over the 15-year period, that didn't happen and things grew apart. And now you revisit that memory field, that memory of that day that was. But you're not that person anymore. So that person isn't your person. So now when you look back at that time and you were in love and you were married and whatever other challenges there were, whatever happiness there was, now from the time leap, when you go back into that moment, it's like, yeah, that was a beautiful time, but it wouldn't be the same now. It's the same for me in 2009 and 2010. My marriage fell apart spring of 2011. I had cancer in 2009 to 2010. Many, many things happened to me. And when I look back, I was so naive then. There were so many things I really didn't understand, know about. And looking back on some of those memory fields now, some things are so obvious to me, both the wrong choices and the mistakes and the wonderful things that I would do over in a heartbeat, but in a very different way because I'm a different person. So retrogrades are about time. So just remember that. And something as simple as a Mercury retrograde can be there to just allow you the opportunity to redo something or revisit something or go back to the drawing board because you're going to do it better because now you have the wisdom and the knowledge of what didn't work last time around. So that's very typical of Mercury retrograde. You miss your plane and then you finally get on a plane later and now you got to sit on the plane for a little while or you got to sit in the airport for a little while and you contemplate, well, what could I have done differently so next time I don't miss the plane? It could be something as simple as that or something as deep as well, why did I marry that person? What was my desire? And what is my desire for partnership now? You know? So it's really all about going back to that memory field, going back to that time, and giving us an opportunity through reflection and through revisiting and through revision to have a breakthrough. And that's why time is something you need in order to have a breakthrough. You know, sometimes we get these instantaneous flashes of intuition, and that's great, but the breakthrough takes a longer time than that. Like I always hear people say, "Oh, I had a life crisis, or I had a spiritual awakening." That's what it is. People say, "I had a spiritual awakening. This happened," and I'm like, "That's not a spiritual awakening. That's an experience. A spiritual awakening takes your whole lifetime. It takes years." All right. So it's always about time related to a breakthrough. So when you think about retrogrades, think about them like that, because the breakthrough is really the essence of the retrograde, because the pattern of time with a retrograde is forward and back and forward. That time allows us these states of reflection for self-awareness, which leads to the breakthrough. So breakthroughs don't happen like that. Experiences happen like that. Healing crises happen like that. But breakthroughs are part of a time frame, a force field, a memory field, where you work with energy and you revise it and reshape it and remold it. Those are the breakthroughs of life. And retrogrades give us the opportunity for those things. And each planet will be a different type of retrograde. You know, Venus is going to be all about what's truly meaningful to us. You know, when Venus is retrograde, and Neptune especially retrograde, Neptune also is about what deeply resonates and connects with us. And if we didn't have those times of quiet revision and contemplation and awareness that they bring, we couldn't have the breakthroughs. So that self-awareness really leads to something. And when we have that, then we apply a new pattern. And that's why, like, this particular retrograde with Mars, being the last time it was there was 15 years ago, seems so powerful to us, because that's a long time of growth. It's a long cycle of growth. So now when we look at those things and we look back, we can really see where the grass grew and where we have the bald spots. And, you know, what is it about the pattern around that retrograde that was really meant to give me the breakthrough, and where in my life do I really resist the breakthrough? Where in my life am I resisting these revisions and these retrogrades and these motions that are there to bring me awareness? So it's really an interesting thing, and I think not a lot of astrologers really delve into what retrogrades really mean. They'll say, "Oh, you know, don't have surgery during a Venus retrograde, you know, cosmetic things, don't do it, you know, or don't redecorate your house, or, you know, don't travel during a Mercury No, it's not that simple. You know, we're known as the soul space, and that's why we talk about very deep, meaningful, soulful things here. So that kind of gives you the rundown. So now, when Mercury's retrograde, it slows down, and now it's in Sagittarius, slowed down. When it does that, a lot of times it is specifically so that we have an opportunity to think about, what do I think about? What do I think about this particular thing? Or what do I need to revise? Or what information is important to me, and why do I have to have it? You know, like, do I get in trouble sometimes because I ask too many questions? Or do I get in trouble because I don't ask enough questions? Like, how can I revise my relationship with information? People who are born with Mercury retrograde in their chart are extremely good at deciphering and discerning information. I have Mercury retrograde in my chart, and I can, you know, read a whole book, skim through a book, and then, you know, tell you, okay, this, and this. Just, that's all you need to know. You don't need to know too much else about that, you know? So it's very interesting. So I'm just going to go to the comments. I want to see my comments. First, I have to go to Facebook, and then I'll go to YouTube. Hold on. Here we are. Hi, John. How are you? I got John on. I got Laureen on. Hey, Laureen. I have Natalie on. So that's great. I also got us to pop over to YouTube and see who's on there. It's been one of those days. We're trying to switch everybody over to YouTube, so it'll be easier to see the show over there. If you have any questions about retrogrades or retrogrades in your chart, please comment about them. All right. Hearts going up to you guys too. I'm going to put hearts up. And then I'm going to hop over to YouTube so that I can see if we've got people on and comments there. Oh, we got more comments on YouTube. Hey, Michelle. Aaron. Aaron found me. Hi, Elaine. I miss you too. Elaine recently moved. So Aaron says, what if you've been working on something and it finally comes to happen during the retrograde? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times retrogrades can also bring rewards because remember, like what I'm saying is, it's that timing. So sometimes retrogrades can actually reward you. However, what I will say, depending on what planet is retrograde, if it's a Mars retrograde, something can come in that you were working on prior that now that action is rewarded, but also it may undergo a little bit of a revision. It doesn't mean that it'll be taken away or it won't be permanent. It just means that it may change a little bit. Like you get one position in a company and then you do that for a little while and then you get a different position or something like that. And also whatever action you take will have a direct correlation to that particular happening or situation. So when Mars is retrograde, depending on what part of the chart, make sure that you are being very careful and contemplative and deliberate about and intentional about that area of your life. Like if it's in your career house or if it's in your home life, like you're being very seriously strategic and intentional and deliberate about the things you do and the decisions you make. So Christine says Mars and Leo in her 4th house makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's your home and family. So Leo, 4th house Leo is also a fire sign. You're going to want to have attention from your partner and from families. Going to want to be a little bit egocentric in that area of your life. You probably would require, in a family life, you would want to be almost like an only child's energy where you kind of want the spotlight on you sometimes. But as you grow and mature, that's going to be done in a much more healthy way. And chances are with a 4th house Leo, more than likely, you have very important things to say to your family, and they should probably listen to you more than they do. You're like the presenter. You're like the person who presents to them. Very, very interesting energy. Yeah, so really cool stuff. So I want to just check my notes really quickly because I don't want to forget anything that I wanted to say about. So Mercury retrograde was something I wanted to say about. So a lot of times Mercury retrogrades, like using the analogy everyone uses about like you miss your plane, you're at the airport. A Mercury retrograde can also very much be breakthroughs in the way you listen and communicate, like the selective hearing. Just like I was saying before, people born with Mercury retrograde have an amazing ability to discern information and pull out information that's important and leave the rest. When we are in a Mercury retrograde like we're in now, it can be breakthroughs around listening and communication styles and being more selective. Like, where am I being oversaturated with energy? Where is it too much? And where do I need to pull back? And where do I not speak up enough? Like that will be a lot to do in a Mercury retrograde. In a Mars retrograde, the breakthroughs come about having really healthy awareness around the right choices and when to act and when not to act. When do I need to just kind of sit on my hands and listen for a little while? And when do I need to act and talk? When do I need to, run over and take an action and make something happen? And when do I just need to kind of observe the room and read the room and know, where do I really need to put my energy? Where do I really want to take up space? Right. And Neptune just recently came out of retrograde a couple of days ago. And that's why these retrogrades are more important to us as well, because Neptune, when it's retrograde, is an awareness of one's own meaning and where we want to show up in life. So with Mars retrograde, all about those actions we want to take for authenticity in Leo, that's coming on the heels of all that Neptune energy that was all about, like, what is my own meaning? Where do I want to be meaningful in my life? So these are very, very deep times. And that's why I say this is a time, even though it's the holidays, we're going to be a little more contemplative. We're going to be a little bit more quiet about things. And I don't think you're going to be going to those ragers every night. And it's not really the time to be getting, bombed out of your mind and running around to all kinds of parties. I think this is going to be a more quiet holiday. I know for me, I have some plans with family to go see a play. We're going to be going with some friends, my family and I, to a beautiful choir presentation at one of the local churches. And I just feel like it's that kind of year. You know, we're coming off a lot of tumultuous things. And even you can feel the media calming down a little bit, not so hyper, at least in my country here in the States. And I think this is a time when we really do want to kind of grab what's important to us, have those quiet times, maybe have some time with family that we don't usually see. You know, over the weekend, I was fortunate enough to spend time with a sister-in-law that I haven't seen in a very long time, and my own sister, and it was, you know, kind of nice. So that's what I had about retrogrades. I'm just checking my notes for anything else. One more thing, or maybe a few more things. When you think back to the last retrograde period, 2009 and 2010, think about what was going on just before then. Because a lot of times when retrogrades come in, the aspects and the influence they have in our own life and our own chart can be something that is very deliberate from the universe to show us that we need to revise something or clear something or really change energy. So think about right prior, like, you know, what was going on in the life. I know for me, right before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was expanding a business and running around like a chicken without a head for a very long time. And I was really in denial of my life. I was at a time when I was very much detached from my life. My father and mother had died 6 months apart. I remember the day my mom died, I was actually signing leases on a new commercial space for a business, and I had to redecorate it. And I remember distinctly I was in this huge carpet warehouse, and I was just hell-bent on making this office beautiful and picking out the right things. And my mom was in hospice, and I was in this big carpet warehouse, and I was with a salesman, and I was pointing up to this carpet in the sky that I wanted. And I remember my phone rang, and I saw the hospice number come up, and I said hello, and they said, "We just want to inform you that your mom just passed." And I said, "Okay, I'll be up as soon as I can." And I hung up, did not even like take a breath or miss a beat, and just turned to the guy and said, "It's that one, the fourth one on the left, the beige one. No, not that one, that one." Went and paid for my carpet and went to hospice. That's somebody who's pretty freaking checked out. So I think my cancer journey was meant to ground me, and it sure did. And it made me realize what was important to me, what was meaningful. I was on such a fast track that I almost had given up my humanness. I was just had so many people depending on me and so many roles that I was playing that I was good at them and I was a good person, but I was absorbed completely in them. And so I believe that 2009, 2010, the retrogrades that happened in my chart that kicked off some very tragic things that grounded me into my spirituality, my authenticity, the wisdom and the compassion and the soul that I have today, were really ignited in those moments. So now when I look back at those times, I can see the wrong choices, and I can see the train going off the track, the wheels coming off the bus, but I can also have compassion for that person and say, wow, what would make someone that detached? That's a lot of pain. That's a lot of trauma. That's a lot of denial that one has to walk through in order to get to the soul space. So it seems really heavy stuff, but it's great stuff. Like, you wouldn't trade it for the world because it brings you to a place of such complete contentment and beautiful timing of everything in your life, because now you're in flow because you're authentic. But sometimes we have to get knocked down to find that authenticity. And sometimes retrogrades do that for us, and they give us that insight. And so think about, in looking back, where have you grown and what do you still resist? And bring what you still resist forward so you can not. So you can make that your breakthrough. And then, you know, your chart is a living thing. The chart is dynamic. It's always moving. So now when this energy comes in, there are other aspects of the chart that are different. So the same things are not going to happen again. You're different. The chart is in different places. The universe is in a different place. We're in a place where we've never been before. So the things that come into our life now are going to be dealt with in a different way. And so now if I had loss, I stop and I allow myself to grieve. I know what grief is now. I know what grief feels like. When I lose a friend or get a phone call about someone passing or something, or my dog passed, like in that moment, I breathe and I'm like, oh, this is grief. I know grief. I'm going to grieve now. And I allow myself that. Whereas before, I couldn't do that. So those are the things that happen in our lives, the experiences that we have, that really bring us awareness. And one of the reasons why I study astrology, and you know, astrology isn't for everybody. You know, it's astrology is like becoming like a theologian. It's like you years and years of entrenchment in the study to really become an astrologer. And not everyone has to be one. But I think everyone should have one that you go to and says, look at the chart. What is this in my life? And what's the karmic experience? And why did my soul choose to have this? Why did my soul choose to be born at this time to go through that retrograde period? And why is my soul going through this now? And it will all be in the chart for someone who has studied to read it. When we try to do that in an amateur way, we get misinformation, we have anxiety, we get wrapped up through our own conditioning of what things are. It's like trying to read your own tarot cards, you know, which I can't do. I can read everybody else's. So that's where I wanted to go through. And then in closing about the retrogrades, what I'm going to say is, don't fear retrogrades. When a retrograde comes, just like the moon cycles, make sure that you are having time to go through some kind of a spiritual ritual that allows you to embody the energy of that retrograde, whether it's a common Mercury retrograde or a very rare, very long Mars retrograde like we have now. Mars retrogrades themselves are not rare, but this one is extremely rare because it's very, very long, months long, which is pretty, you know, long. And ask yourself, why did my soul choose to have this? What is the energy I'm feeling, right? You don't have to be in the framework of astrology to do that. You can just do that in the framework of your own wisdom and your own belief system. And then try to have clarity around what that feels like. Like, what did it feel like 15 years ago? And what does it feel like now? And ask yourself, like, instead of going back into a memory field that's going to make me anxious or sad, what can I take away from visiting that memory field so that I can be a better person now? If that happened to me now, how would I react and what would I do differently? You know, there's a lot of things I would do differently, but I don't have any blame or shame about it because it's all, nothing is wrong. Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. So really, really interesting stuff. So let me check and see if any of you have any more comments. I'm going to put some live chat in here. And like I said, if you have any questions, just ask away. So I hope you're enjoying the show. Actually, this is the second to last show of the year. I'm going to be doing a show. I got to talk to my producer, Bobby, before I leave today. I'm going to be doing a show on next Monday, and then the following 2 weeks fall very close to the Christmas holidays. I think it's the 23rd. And New Year's Day. So I don't know if we're going to be doing shows that day or not. But also what I'd love to do would be to hear from you guys and find out what you'd like to see on the show and what you'd like me to talk about. All right. So I am going to pull some cards for the world energy because we do have some things going on in the world right now and maybe what to expect in 2025. And we'll see where that goes. How's that? So one of the things also coming in this week with energy, I just want to change my screen again. One of the things coming in this week is Mercury does go direct on the 15th, which is Friday, and that's going to happen at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So, you know, it is squaring that Mars. So just remember that that can also lead to insights, because now that Mercury retrograde will be over. It'll still be in what we call shadow for a while, but that's when you may have breakthroughs. And that's also, don't forget, that is, I believe, the full moon in Gemini on Friday. Full moon in Gemini on Friday is very powerful. It's going to be a lot of energy to do with communication. So just be careful of your words that day as well. And the sun is squaring Neptune right around then too. So it's going to be a little bit of a harsh energy, but I think it'll also, with full moon in Gemini, I think that's also going to bring us a lot of awareness and insights, a lot of breakthroughs. Okay, just shuffling my cards here. I just got a little intuition. I am actually going to pull some cards to to go into the energy. Spirit just kind of said this to me. I am going to pull some cards to go into the energy of what the Soul Space podcast is going to be about on 2025 and what to expect from it. Very cool. Thank you for that, Spirit. Okay. First card is the Four of Swords. The Four of Swords is a card of quiet repose. When the Four of Swords comes up, it means you have to contemplate and think about something. And I was actually thinking about that as I was getting ready for the show today. I was like, maybe I should take the Christmas and New Year break to just think about how I want to reformat the show for 2025. And the next card is the Queen of Swords, which is me, Libra, Queen of Swords, sitting on the throne. Hoo-hoo! Look at all that gold under my feet. Yeah, okay. And that's intuition, abundance. So this is all about the soul space, I got to tell you. I'm selfish tonight. I pull cards for everyone else tonight. I'm pulling them for me. And the third card is hard work paying off. So I think we're going to see some changes with the soul space in 2025. And I've been feeling like that. I've been feeling like I needed to switch up the energy. So this is really cool that I'm actually getting to have confirmation from Spirit. I never pull my own cards on the show, but I just had to do it tonight for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe rewarding myself for a job well done. I hope you guys feel the same way. Or am I being selfish? I don't know, but we'll see. Natalie is asking if I think there'll be war next year. I don't really think so. I think, common sense tells me if there's going to be a war, and I know Natalie has people in Russia, if there's going to be a war, I don't think it's going to be a war like we think. I think it'll be more of a cyber attacks and electronics, because I feel like the idea of combat, I think, even though I know they're doing it in Ukraine and other parts of the world, I just think that, especially in the States here, people are going to attack us cyber way, utility, thing like that. And then I have this card, which is also beautiful pentacles. Look at all these pentacles, guys. I'm feeling good about this. So this is the Nine of Pentacles, which is the woman with the beautiful robe. And if you look at the robe, she has flowers on the robe. That's a sign of abundance. And also when you read tarot, colors are very important. Thanks, Lorene. Colors are very important. Oh, hey, Anita. Because look at all the gold in the background, the gold on the coin, the pentacle. Even in the card of repose, the Four of Swords, you have this beautiful golden light that he's laying on, right? Which is all symbolic of abundance, light, the golden light of Christ. I had a beautiful meditation on Saturday with a friend of mine, and the golden light of Christ came in for us, and Jesus actually came in and gave me a healing. It was very beautiful. And so that yellow golden color is very symbolic. You also... Did you guys see that orb just fly through? You'll see it if I'm going to... Wow, there was some orb that just completely flew through the whole thing. It will not be recreated because it was not anything from lights. Wow. Okay. I got to watch the playback because I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was an orb that just flew across the whole screen. So, I'm sorry, I'm speechless. So that beautiful golden light of Christ, and when you... meditate, always bring in there it is again. What the hell is that? Every time I say the beautiful light of Christ, this orb comes through. That is weird. Okay, so whenever you meditate, always bring in good intention. And this is the Lover's card. The Lover's card in tarot isn't just like a card of lovers. It's a card of interference in a relationship. And I will tell you that one of the messages I've been getting lately about the soul space, and even just myself and my own meditation habits, is I need to do it more and be more structured about it, because I feel like there's interference in my connection. And that happens every once in a while when I come too much into the three-dimensional or earthbound world. So it's really interesting that this card came up. But again, if you look at the top part of the card, that is the Archangel Gabriel. And he's coming in to give clear message to the lovers, to the relationship, so that the interference, which is the mountain coming between them, is going to be dissolved by this beautiful message from Archangel Gabriel and the golden light that comes down through and just makes the mountain become dissolved and decayed, and now the lovers come together. So the lovers is a card of interference in a relationship. Very interesting. And then I'm going to take one more card for confirmation of the reading, and that is the Knight of Wands. Knights in tarot are usually a young male person or someone who identifies as a male, and usually wands are a card of action. And this is very representative of Leo energy. So what these cards are telling me is to use the Mars retrograde in Leo in order to recreate, revise, and revisit my commitment, not just to my own spiritual practice, but also my commitment to this beautiful podcast, my Zenkuda community, and how I want to really develop that to be more an authentic representation of my work in the world and help others through that authenticity. So this is an amazing reading about the Soul Space podcast. So I think in 2025, we're going to have a lot of new things, and we're also going to have a lot of people that will come in and maybe inspire us to do more beautiful work and more spirituality and more meditation and things like that. I actually have a few ideas for some people who I'm going to bring on the show in the beginning of 2025. So it's going to be really cool. So, I'm just happy that that was my reading, because I feel like it was really good. And I never really do that where I read, for myself. So that was really cool. Thank you. Michelle is on. Michelle Allen. Kim Murray came on. Been a while. She likes the YouTube. Yeah, this is great. So I'm going to be here next Monday night, and I hope you'll all join me. And I hope you'll tell friends about our show. And I just want to say, if there's anything that you want to see in the Soul Space, or if you have somebody that you think would be a really great guest for the Soul Space, let's bring them on. Really quick story that I wanted to just tell you guys before I log off. This past week, I was very busy. I'm very busy at my regular job now. You guys know I'm a real estate broker, and I also train agents, so like things get a little hectic. But Saturday, I stayed home, and my friend came over, and as I said, we meditated. And I realized how important it is that we take those days, whether you call them pajama days or TV days or whatever they are. We don't have to spend every waking minute being busy and every waking minute in obligation for others, playing the roles that we all play. Please, please, in the next couple of weeks, it's so important with everything that we have changing and accelerating in our world around us and the energy that's out there. Please just do something quiet, like really be with yourself and be in that place of quiet contemplation where maybe the world, you can shut it off for a little while. Maybe watch an old Christmas or holiday movie, or take the kids out somewhere, or just walk in the woods and come home and have a hot cocoa, look at some beautiful lights or something, or light a candle. Especially this Friday when we have that December 15th full moon. Sunday it is, the December 15th full moon on Sunday. Really take some time to kind of decompress, rewire yourself, because that full moon is going to be filled with a lot of energy. And if we get entangled in that, we're not going to get the rest we need to heal our lives during these important retrogrades, and also to find the wisdom that we need to move forward in 2025. So write down your goals, take some time to really be with people that you care about, that are really valuable to you, and take some time to be with yourself and check in and see how you're really feeling. So you guys know where to find me. You can find me on Zenkuda.com, where you can see replays of all our podcasts and book a reading if you wish. You can also find me on Facebook, on Zenkuda Official at Instagram. And also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Zenkuda. I'll see you back here next Monday night. Use those retrogrades the best you can. Bye-bye.